tonight we're going to be doing a cat-themed kind of thing, by somewhat popular opinion, meaning one person voted for cats last week. So to that end, I have a new game called Starfighters Rapid Fire that I recently got off of Amazon. Unfortunately, Amazon quit using boxes as much and instead shipped it in a bag, which that's always fun. But to supplement that, we also have a couple of other cat-themed games that we're just going to take a look at because these are quick and fun, and the Starfighters game says that it should only take about a half hour of playtime. So that's the plan. So let's go ahead and start out with the most basic of these three cat-themed games, which is one that maybe you've all seen in Target. I know I've seen it there on their gaming end cap type things, but it's this one called Cat Stacks. And Cat Stacks is a fun game for anyone who likes tangrams, whatever they're called, the shapes to make other shapes thing. I think they're tangrams, but Cat Stacks is very similar to that, except instead of tangram shapes, you have assorted kitty cat shapes. So you have basically cat tetraminos, and these are going to be used on each of the different design cards to try and fill the space. So at its core, a very, very simple game. Each card will give you various shapes and tell you which cats you need to use to fill it. Some of which can be multiple layers deep. And it's a good solitaire experience as well, because obviously you're probably not going to have multiple people playing on a single set of tangrams. But this one, for example, has 5 cats that are going to be a single layer deep. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 cats. Here you go, Jackie, a little detail on the cats for you. They're all different shapes and sizes, so a little cuteness with your gaming. But then you just take the card, you start allocating the cats to it, and that's all there is. But apparently I don't know how to do tangrams anymore. I used to be really good at these, but maybe it's the cat shape that makes it difficult. They have to be somewhat interconnected because that's just how it is. And that definitely adds an extra layer of difficulty. So I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this one, but it was cat themed, so I thought it was appropriate for tonight. Yeah, we could. Nala's not here, but Gizmo is. So here you go. Say hi, Gizmo. He pretty much lives in my office now, so But yeah, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on cat stacks because I don't want to make myself look dumb trying to figure out shapes. But yeah, this one I just wanted to kind of bring it out and show everyone. It's like $8 to $10 on the Target end cap. So just a cheap little game. It comes with a pretty decent stack. There's 48 cards in the challenge deck, so you got a lot of different configurations to work on, and well, it's cat themed. Who can ask for anything more? So that was just a quick introduction. Like I said, it's not really a fun game for me to stream unless I'm feeling especially smart, but this time of day, that's usually not the case. So let's move on to another Dogs, Foxes, Wolves. Yeah, I've got some games with dogs, foxes, and wolves also. Lots of stuff to play. Plenty of time. Plenty of streams worth of gaming. We can do a couple of these themed nights. But yeah, the patio size one would be really cool. You could even, not even 3D print them, you could just use a projector to upscale them onto like a foam board or something and make foam pieces. So before we jump into the most complicated of the three that I have tonight, which is Starfighters, we'll take a look at another one that, because it's a Think Fun game, and Think Fun is a pretty readily available brand, again, I think at Target, but I got this one, I think, at Goodwill, so I don't really know what the regular price on it is. But this is another single-player game, which is really only a suggestion because I played it with one of my kids, and it was just as fun that way. But you know those logic games where you've got the triangular-shaped grid of grids, and you have to say who had what color of what food at what time, and you're just given a whole bunch of hints, and you have to try and fill in the grid to get the right mix of all of the answers as you go. Well, that's essentially how Cat Crimes works. You've got 6 cats here, all of which are full of personality, like Pipsqueak, Mr. Mittens, Duchess, Sassy, Ginger, and Tomcat. So, in each of these scenarios in this game, you have a cat who has committed some crime or another, be it knocking over the plant, or chewing up the slippers, or eating all the food, and using the clues available and the layout of the board, you have to figure out what cat committed the crime. So it's very much a logic puzzle in a physical board game form. You have 6 different crimes here, like who knocked over the plant, who ate the bird, who unraveled the yarn, who chewed up the shoes, who spilled the coffee, and who ate the fish. And then for each, you've got the challenge cards, which provide you with all of the game clues and the solution. And they come in 4 different difficulty levels, from beginner all the way up to expert. And it's really just a fun little game if you're into the logic puzzle type of challenge. So, what you do, there's no setup other than to put the standees on the cats. But then you grab your deck of cards, choose which difficulty level you want, which we'll just look at a beginner for example. So they're color-coded by difficulty level, and they've got all of your initial clues that you need on the card. So just starting out with one beginner level, you have clues that sound like Mr. Mittens was sitting in front of the birdcage. So this is a spilled coffee crime. And you're going to know which cat is the one who committed it by whoever ends up sitting in front of the crime token. So, in this one, Mr. Mittens. So, Mr. Mittens here was sitting in front of the birdcage. So, you know Mr. Mittens was here at the head of the table because there's only one birdcage icon. Tomcat was sitting across from Mr. Mittens. So that means directly across, so he's at the opposite end of the table. Pipsqueak was sitting in front of a mouse. So there's a mouse icon here and a mouse icon here. Mr. Mittens is already sitting in front of that one, so Pipsqueak is sitting here. Duchess was sitting next to Pipsqueak. So the space on Pipsqueak's right is occupied. Duchess has to sit on the left. Sassy was sitting next to Ginger. Well, there were the only 2 cats left. And Ginger was not sitting across from Duchess. So Ginger was sitting across from Pipsqueak, which puts Sassy in front of the coffee. And then once you've got the entire dining table laid out, then you flip your card and see who the culprit is. In this case, we were right. It was Sassy. And that's a very basic example. That's like the first introductory level card. So it does get far more complicated and difficult from there. But if that's the kind of thing you're interested in, that sort of puzzle, then I'd recommend this game. It's a lot of fun. The challenges do definitely get more challenging, and it can be a real brain teaser up at the higher levels. So, again, think fun game. So, should be readily available out there. And I don't think it's probably going to be that awfully expensive either. But I play these types of games in an app on my phone, and back when I used to travel half the time every month when I was working for the Navy, I would always buy puzzle books in the airport, and this was one of my favorite types of puzzles to do in those too. So having it in a game form is just fun and or interesting. And it's got nice art, so that helps too. So again, just another game that I wanted to give a quick introduction for. Both of which are nice solo time wasters, but that's not the main reason we're here tonight. The main reason is for Starfighters. Yeah, it's really nice for something that's not a 17 to 30 page rule book, just to sit down and play. Doesn't take several hours to set up. I think my daughter and I went through like eight of the little challenges in less than an hour. So yeah, both of those are good. I'm going to keep trying to throw in a handful of different, smaller, easier to play games like that, just to introduce them to everybody, because not everyone's got however many hours it may take to play any number of other games that I may have. I was telling Ten recently, I've got a Battlestar Galactica game, which I might show here, but we won't play it. It takes a minimum of 3 people, but it's got a 3 to 8 hour playtime. So, yeah. Some of these smaller games, just good opportunity to get some playtime in and give your brain a little workout. But, speaking of Battlestar Galactica, this game has, based on what I've read and played of the just basics, a very Battlestar Galactica feel. But it's actually kind of 2 games in one. The multiplayer game is more of a head-to-head Starfighter versus Starfighter game. You can play, 2 to 4 people with everybody going up against each other, based on a backstory of the universe has become peaceful and conflicts are settled through basically Starfighter gladiatorial contests. So it's like Rollerball. Remember that movie from the 70s? Not the 2000s one, the 70s one with James Caan. It's kind of like that, or even better, Robot Jocks. Anybody remember Robot Jocks, or is that just me? But yeah, the game has the same kind of feel from that perspective. However, for the solo mode, you are actually a lone starfighter going up against an enemy that uses giant space stations as kind of world-destroying weapons. So the world destroyers actually have a very Cylon base star feel to them. This is the space station detail tile. So in a lot of ways it feels like a Vipers versus base star kind of game. And the space stations here can also launch drones, so the equivalent of Cylon Raiders, basically. And not to be outdone by larger, more complex games, this one comes with a neat little variety of ship miniatures, because you all know me, I love my miniatures. So this one comes with a selection of various starfighters, unique to each of the 4 pilot characters. This one kind of reminds me of Spike's Swordfish from Cowboy Bebop. This one kind of reminds me a little bit of the Ebon Hawk from Knights of the Old Republic. This one, it's kind of that newer Jedi Starfighter design from Episode 3, but also kind of the that TIE fighter ship that the Sith agents flew in Star Wars The Old Republic. And lastly, this thing kind of what is that ship I'm trying to think of? I can't pin down what this one is. It's very reminiscent of something else to me, so I know I'll think of it at some point, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what it was. So you're going to be one of those 4 ships, and you're going to be going up against a single base, single space station. Now, one of the interesting things about this one is that it has a real-time component, so each turn puts you on a timer. Oh yeah, assault gunboat. It does kind of look like that, doesn't it? Maybe. But yeah, there's a real-time component to this, and there's also a significant strategy component to it. So the first thing you've got to do is lay out your board and choose your character. And this is the whole board. That's it, just one small hex board. So, not a lot of play space, but I think that probably just adds to the complexity of the strategy that the game asks for. So once you've got the board laid out, you get to choose your ship and character, and because Cat Knight was kind of Jackie's idea, we'll let Jackie choose the character. So in yellow, you've got a wolf named Foster. But we're not here about the wolves. We're here about something else. The green one gives us an owl named James. But honestly, I think it's going to come down to one of these last 2. Either the blue one, which is Catherine, or the pink one, which is Luke. They do kind of look like the Root characters, don't they? But I have a feeling Jackie's going to pick either Catherine or Luke, and actually, I would bet it's going to be Catherine. What do you say, Jackie? I mean, not only is she kind of the poster child of the game, right there front and center. Poor owl didn't even get any representation on the box. Yep, good call. But she's also got probably one of the coolest looking ships. I really like that swept wing aileron design that she's got going there. And like I said, it reminds me of Spike's Swordfish from Cowboy Bebop, and I love Cowboy Bebop, so. So your character starts out there at the bottom of the map, and then we've got several components to the game, a lot of which don't actually get used in the single player because they're only for the multiplayer game. So if you don't want to use miniatures, each game comes with tokens you can use in place of the ship. So each ship has its own token representation. You've also got tokens for the drones. So we've got various drones that can be deployed, and there's actually several difficulty levels in the game too that are set by which however many drones you decide to use. So I am going to play on the easy mode, which means I'm not starting with any drones on the board. What you do start with is one of the space stations. And is it just me, or does that space station art look like one of the Federation ships from Firefly? Remember those? They looked like kind of like cities, right? But one of these is going to occupy the center of the board. And I don't know if it matters which one. They're all numbered, but shouldn't really have any impact on the game itself. But another aspect of difficulty level is there are two versions of each ship available. There's an A-side version and a B-side version. So the A is more of the introductory base level version of the play area, and the B-side is the more advanced, difficult version of the game. So each player also gets a pair of torpedoes, appropriately colored for their character starting out, as well as a number of torpedoes available for the base, because bad guy's got a bad guy, so can't take that opportunity away. So bad guys are purple, so we'll put their torpedoes up here just to have them ready. And it's funny that I've been talking about the X-Wing games because there's a lot to this game that makes me think of X-Wing and TIE Fighter also, because it's about managing your ship's systems as much as it is about, blowing up the enemy base. So as you can see on the game board here, each ship's got a HUD, and then you've got various systems around to allocate your resources to. So you've got a drive system, you've got torpedoes, you've got your shields, you've got your lasers, and then you've got special abilities. So in the solo game, you actually use an overcharge token. Normally the overcharge is just a basic functionality of any ship, but because it's got a kind of cooldown for the single player campaign, you use a overcharge that has a cooldown that still gives you a bonus, just not as large. And then down here at the bottom, you've got a hull tracker. So part of the setup for each of your ships is going to be grabbing your hull tokens, and they're essentially your damage tracker, right? The enemy base gets 6 by default that go in the center to track enemy damage. And then each of the other ships gets 4 hull token pieces, so they go down here as essentially your hit points. So once hull points are lost, there's no getting them back, but part of your resource management is making sure that you keep your shields up. So this game also has a directional component to it, so that which way your ship is facing has a direct impact on the game. Because you have 4 independent sets of shields, 1 in each cardinal direction. And 10, I know what you're thinking, it's space, there are 6 cardinal directions at least, but you know, it's not a 3-dimensional board game. We're not quite there yet, so we're just going to have to settle for 4. And to facilitate that, the enemy base here actually rotates. So it has a directional function to it. Oops. That's actually the orange one. So that goes there. I was using those for the base hull tokens, but I think these are the base hull tokens. The ones that are labeled 1 through 6. And that's the piece that goes in the center. That looks a little better. So there you go. There's your hull tokens for the ship. All right. Now, the orientation of the space station always starts with the number 1 symbol pointing toward the main ship. So those 3 directions on there, it has an EMP blast that'll shoot out in every direction every turn. So its turn starts with an EMP blast, then it goes to a station card that you resolve, and then it goes to a super weapon blast at the end. So the EMP can completely remove your shields, and the super weapon blast can just ruin your day altogether. And then the last step of the space station's turn every round is rotation. So it will rotate based on how much hull damage it's received or what turn you're on. So essentially what you do is you get dice assigned. So you've got 1 command die, 4 weapons die, and 4 operations die. And then every round you roll your die, you allocate them to your various boards, various systems on your ship, and then you resolve the actions that the allocation of those die allow you. The restrictions are that for a solo mode, it's a 12-round game. So I got a handy dandy D12 here to use for tracking which round we're on. And like I said, there's a real-time component, which is laid out on this table here, that starts at 22 seconds in easy mode, but then decreases down to a low of 14 seconds at the end. So there's no limit to how many times you can re-roll your die before you allocate them, other than the time limit. So if you finish your allocation before the time runs out and yell fire, or in some other way state that you finished your allocation, you go first for that round. If you haven't finished allocating all your dice by the time the timer runs out, then the enemy goes first on that round. So that adds yet another level of complexity to it. And then we've got these fancy little purple translucent cubes here, and these indicate your shield status. So they go on your board to indicate how much shield you have. So in X-Wing and TIE Fighter, you know, you can allocate your shields in different ways. You can't really like double forward your shields in this one, but you do have these to track your allocation. And then the space station also has shields all the way around it. And that's where your directional component comes in, because you have to take out the shields in the direction you're firing before you can get to the hull. So that's what the fully shielded base is going to look like. And then lastly, for the initial setup of the board here, we've got these systems tokens that for the solo mode, normally you have to allocate, say for torpedoes, you need to play one HUD die and then 3 torpedo weapons die from your torpedoes to be able to fire a torpedo. For the solo mode, they kind of make things a little bit easier by having you put a persistent systems token onto your torpedoes, so you only have to have 2 torpedo die, and a token on your shield recharge, so that the first time you have to recharge shields, it takes 1 less die as well. So those are reactor tokens. Oops. And last but not least, for prepping up a solo game, you make the space station deck. I don't know, I think that the space station is kind of a sun crusher. They say it's a planet destroyer, so there are 3 difficulty levels for the space station deck, and you're going to have 4 cards of each difficulty level. So shuffle them up, get rid of 1 card from each, and that's the space station deck. Oops, there are only 4. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why I'm shuffling them. I have no idea what they say, but alright, so that's your space station deck for each turn. And that's it. Now you're ready to go. You can move your ship by using drive dice allocated to your drive systems. You can fire your lasers by obviously allocating die to your laser systems. Same with torpedoes. You can recharge your shields by allocating die to those. And that's it. Like I said, you're allowed to re-roll any die you want, as many times as you want, within the time limit set by whatever round you're on. So each die has a symbol for its class. So operations die have an operation symbol as well as a generic command symbol. So, and then you put them on the appropriate colored space and you try to take out the enemy ship. I don't know how I feel about the real-time component. It makes me think entirely too fast or roll entirely too fast. But hey, you know, it is what it is. At some point we're going to play the XCOM board game because I love XCOM, and it has a real-time component because it's XCOM. There's no way it's going to be an easy game, but we'll see how that goes. So anyway, we've got a 22-second timer because that's what we start on. The first 4 rounds are 22 seconds each before the time goes down. And I got myself a handy-dandy new dice tower, hopefully to improve some of my rolling. And I've changed the camera setup so that you all can see all the rolls and know exactly what I get as we go. Hopefully that's not loud and annoying, but and on that note, let's get going with this and see how things work out. So first turn, I'm going to start the timer. Gonna roll the dice. So, well, that's not gonna work really well for this game because I have to be able to know which dice I want to re-roll. Really? 6 seconds? Time flies. Okay, yeah, I lose. Well, I'm not going to get to go first this time, so I can still allocate my dice. But the enemy gets to make their turn first. So that's great. These last 3 die didn't roll any icons, so I guess I don't get to use those. But we'll draw an enemy card, and for their first move, oh wait, that's right, for their first move, yeah, that doesn't work really well with the dice tower, I guess. I'm going to have to roll these on the table. The dice tower will be better for some of those future games that. So for now, we'll just do this and roll on the table instead. Alright. So the first thing that this that the space station does every turn is fire its EMP blast. So the EMP, here you go. EMP fires in all 3 directions indicated on the. You think so? Yeah, maybe that's not a bad idea. Let's re-roll without the dice tower. See if maybe I can get a little faster. Okay. All right, done. Fire. Oh yeah, that was only 14 seconds to roll and place all those dice. So that works significantly better without the dice tower. Guess we'll save that for Saturday when we do some Masters of the Universe. So I've got my dice allocated, I think. I have no idea. But we'll see what we can do. At least now I get to go first, and I can decide what order I want to take my actions in. And the first thing I'll do is Oh, see, I only allocated one die to my HUD, and I believe you have to use a HUD die to activate each system on your ship that you want to use. Meaning, yeah, get the self-destruct AI from Spaceballs, or even better, what is it? Battle Among the Stars, right? The Roger Corman one with Nell, the ship that self-destructs at the end. Yeah, that's a. Oh, yeah, that was a good one too. Lots of different options there. But yeah, because I didn't go ahead and put anything in my HUD, I can only really use one system. So my options are to either use my one HUD to fire my laser for a total of 3 damage, or I can fire one torpedo. Oh, by the way, lasers, you have to be adjacent. You can't be as far away as I am, so the laser doesn't work anyway. I could move. There are 2 lines of movement. You can either do a drive move, which lets you move 1 space per die, or you can do a rotation, which allows you to rotate 60 degrees per die. Fortunately, rotation doesn't matter for firing on the space station. You can fire in any direction at any time, so I guess you've got movable turrets on your ship. And torpedoes move 1 space per turn. So I think it behooves me to use my one system allocation to move on this first turn. So I will move 2 spaces to get adjacent, which puts me in laser firing range to the space station, and puts me out of its line of fire for the EMPs, because I'm no longer at any of those 3 directions that it's going to fire its EMP blast at. So because of my stupid allocation, that's it for me on that turn. Which means off to the enemy turn. It fires its EMP. I'm not in line of sight for any of those directions. So we flip its space station card and we play the space station card. So the only action is to drop a drone in the furthest drone placement point. So there are several drone placement points that are laid out in the rules. They kind of give you a map of where it's possible to drop your drones in. In this case, we're putting it in the farthest spot. So from me, that's going to be over here. So that's the allocation of the drone. And for the last step in the enemy phase, it's going to do its rotation. So each starbase card has a rotate number, which on this one is up in the top corner, 1. And we're going to rotate clockwise that many spaces. So we rotate here, putting me in the path of the EMP. And then we're on to turn 2. And turn 2 goes the exact same way. 22 seconds on the clock. Roll and allocate dice. So you can put any dice that come up with a command symbol up into the command deck. Fire. Hey look, I made it again with a couple seconds to spare. And this time I allocated 3 dice to my HUD, but only allocated dice to 2 systems. So, I mean, great, I guess. But obviously for this turn I'm going to go ahead and fire lasers. So you take one HUD die and all 3 die from my lasers. And I think that the HUD die counts as a damage. Let me just double check that real quick. So yeah, the HUD die. Activate lasers, remove a yellow or red command die, and all die from your laser system. Then you roll the 2 die on the attack system. So that means I had 3 die allocated. So you roll your 3 die that were allocated to that system, and that's how many hits you get. So I hit 2 out of 3 times on the number 3 side of the mothership. So those 2 hits mean I disabled the 2 shields on that side. And then I can allocate my drive system again to get out of the path of the EMP. Draw another space station card. Oh wait. Nope, drones are dependent on these. So this time, space station fires 2 lasers at the ship. So I'll roll 2 die for the space station. It got 1 hit, and that's on my left flank. So, or as 10 would say, on my port side. So I lose 1 shield token on that side. And then we advance to round 3. Round 3, start the timer, allocate the dice. Alright, fire. Yeah, look, I barely made it, which means I'm going to be screwed after round 4 when the timer gets shorter. But I made it under the wire, so I get to take my turn first, just like last time. Oh, wait, I forgot to do the rotation on 1, 2, 3. Alright, so it's currently rotated to orient like that. So I allocated plenty of dice to my drive system. So I'll use my 1 command die and my 4 drive die to put myself in a dangerous position right between them, but also to get on the side where I've already taken down the ship's shields. So by doing so, then I get to use my die allocated to my weapon system. Oh, I forgot to use the overcharge last turn. Overcharge means that I get double damage for any red attack hit. So I'll remember to use that this time. But I have 3 attack die on this unshielded side. And I got 1 damage plus 2 damage for the overpower. So I take 3 hull tokens off of the space station for the 3 damage I did on the unshielded side. Next is space station's turn. Fire 1 torpedo. Drop 1 torpedo closest to the ship. So that was the action for the space station on this turn. And a rotation of 2. So it's back to its initial orientation. Now the torpedoes move at the range of 1 space per round. So that thing's going to chase me as the game progresses. And now we're on to turn 4. My last turn with 22 full seconds on the timer, so we'll go ahead and start the timer and start the rolls, which aren't off to a great start, but gotta start somewhere, I guess. Alright, fire. Good. So, once again, that was a pretty good allocation because I can keep chasing that number 3 side. Oh, crap. Number 3 side. That's what I forgot at the beginning of the space station's turn, was the fire EMP. Every turn it fires the EMP, and I was on that side, so because I was on that side, I lose all my shields on the side that was facing the space station because I got hit by that EMP. So they're down for the duration of this particular turn. And the drones actually do get an action every turn. So this turn, when it's the... Oh wait, I guess last turn it should have, because I was in range. Last turn, the drone should have been able to take a shot at me. So its turn is to move 1 hex toward me wherever I happen to be. So he's going to chase me down and then fire lasers. So drones always fire 2 laser die. So, actually, sorry. They roll 1 die because they get 1 automatic hit and then 1 die roll to see if they can hit for a second time. So, for the drone, I will go ahead and roll its attack die to make up for last round, and it hit me, so it did 2 damage, and because I'm facing away from it, that means it takes down my aft shield. So now I'll continue with this turn. So I've got 3 movement dice, and I will use them to 1, 2, and 1 rotation of 60 degrees. And then I will go ahead and use my weapon activation for 3 more laser shots, which again, I'm on its unshielded side, so overcharge is on cooldown, so all I get is +1 to my overall damage, but I have 2 hits, +1 damage from my overcharge, means 3 damage on its unshielded flank, which, as far as I can tell, destroys the space station. So I guess easy mode is truly an easy mode, because that wasn't too awfully bad. I can see where playing on the higher difficulties would be a lot more fun strategically, because there's a larger allocation of higher level cards to the deck, and you get a much shorter allocation turn for your own die, which means I probably only did as well as I did because I got to take the first turn every round. But yeah, I can see where it would get more strategically fun as the difficulty ramped up. So yeah, a little better than Judge Dredd, I'd say. So I don't know, somewhere between a 3 and a 4 if I were ranking it. I know that's a cop-out to just say somewhere between. I guess that would be a 3.5 if I'm giving half scores. Or if I'm going out of 10, we could just call it a 7. Oh, I don't want to give half points. Well, then change your scale. Okay, let's do out of 10. This game's a 7 out of 10. How's that? Judge Dredd was a 6. Whatever game I played before that was an 8. I should probably start writing these down. But yeah, fun game. One that has the potential for some significant depth. And one that I'd recommend, especially if you're looking for something that's not one of those $850,000 games. I think this one was like $20, $22 on Amazon. So reasonably priced. But yeah, so that was Starfighter. Quick and easy, and scalable to your needs, I guess we'll say.